On the amended and substituted notice of intent filed by Vineyard Wind LLC under the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, the project involves the installation of 2 offshore electric transmission cables within Muskeget Channel to connect to offshore wind turbines. Who's representing the applicant? You want to make a presentation at this time? Oh, wait a second, one thing. Would the board please identify themselves to the audience, since we have such a large audience? Stuart, you want to...
That's Stuart Wallace under the Edgartown. Jeffrey Conchi.
Peter Vincent.
Lil Province.
Jeff Carlson.
Christina Brown.
Jane, I'm just staff.
More than just.
Lisa, you being silent?
Yeah, I'm less than staff.
Okay. Okay.
My name is Rachel Pachter. I'm with Vineyard Wind. We are the applicant. I'm the Vice President of Permitting Affairs, so I've been managing the permitting on the project since the beginning in 2017, since we filed our first applications, and we're permitting everything, including with you folks, and up to almost 10 agencies at the federal level, many agencies at the state level. So it's a project that covers a lot of jurisdictions, and there's a lot to look at, and there's a lot to address. I just want to note from the get-go that stakeholder issues are the #1 focus of the Vineyard Wind project, and I think many of you folks probably know that this project was born out of a partnership with a local nonprofit on Martha's Vineyard, and so that has been forefront in our minds at every step of the engineering, every step of the permitting, and we intend to keep it that way all the way through.
This program, the endangered species folks, reviewed this notice of intent and the project as a whole, determined that the project wouldn't cause a take of endangered species, so they also approved the project, so we don't need a permit there.
Adam, you brought up rare species habitat, and I know you're kind of an expert on this stuff. It says in here that going through, when the cable goes through Muskeget Channel, it's going to disturb priority habitat. Muskeget Channel is all considered priority habitat, according to what I'm reading in here. So if you're going to disturb that, why isn't that a take?
So this may be a question that Holly is better to answer, but I think all of the offshore areas mapped as priority habitat, any activity out there. But the actions that were done when National Heritage reviewed it, the mere fact that there's an activity in priority habitat doesn't mean that it will be a take. And in this case, they looked at it and determined that it wouldn't be a take. I think it's priority habitat for foraging birds. So we're obviously under the water, and so we're not going to be following it.
So it's a little bit different set of rules for water, underwater, as opposed to on land. Priority habitat here and takes are a big deal, a lot of mitigation.
Well, we know from a prior experience about that, but the rules are not different, but in this case, Natural Heritage determined that an activity, even though it takes place in priority habitat, wasn't a take and we don't need a permit. I'm going to turn it over to Holly Carlson.
Hello again. My name is Holly Carlson Johnston. I'm a senior consultant with Epsilon Associates. I've been managing the state, regional, and local permitting for the Vineyard Wind Connector. And so the bottom line is, although we have identified this corridor for installation, the actual footprint of the project and the impacts will only affect 2 narrow strips within this installation.
Let me interrupt you for one.
Yeah, sure.
You're talking about the entire project right at the moment, right?
I'm talking about installation of the 2 export
Right, which is the project.
Right.
Okay, well, the first question before us is whether or not the Edgartown bylaw applied, and I thought you were going to address that question also, as well as Adam. But are you going to address that question any further, or do you wish us to proceed with that one?
If the commission has sufficient information to take a vote, I think that would be...
Well, if there's any more information you want to add to that,
I think I could restate what I already said. The geographic jurisdiction ends 300 feet from the water. As you can see from the figure that Holly has up there, we're a mile, 300 feet from the shore. We're a mile from shore. Therefore, there's no geographic jurisdiction under the local bylaw.
okay, so that's your complete presentation as to that particular item, whether or not the Edgartown bylaw applies. Does anyone on the board wish to question them any further on that particular question, which is a separate item? Does anyone in the audience wish to address that particular question of whether or not the Edgartown bylaw applies? Yes.
I think that there's going to be an incredible amount of sediment impact coming into Edgartown waters as they're dredging and blasting through there. Even if their cable is a little far outside of Edgartown water, I still think it does apply personally.
Anyone wish to make a motion as to whether the Edgartown bylaw applies or not? Anyone wish to make a negative or a positive motion as to whether it applies? A negative motion would mean that they does not apply, and a positive motion would mean that it does apply and they have to apply under it. Well, town council has advised us that it does not apply. I have questions about the view and vista thing, though. Consideration, we do have to get by this particular thing, so if you have any particular thing addressing whether or not the Edgartown Wetland Protection bylaw does apply or not. Do you have anything else different to say?
I do, and I speak as a international expert on infrasound, and I hope to talk with you all about
You hold
that.
degrees on that?
I'm sorry?
You hold degrees on that?
I have a PhD, I'm a licensed
In what?
clinical psychologist. I have...
A PhD in what?
Clinical psychology.
Okay.
And the infrasound has an effect, a neurological effect, it has a psychoneurological effect. I have a letter from the CEO of Vestas to the Danish Minister of the Environmental Protection, which says...
What CEO?
Vestas, the maker of these turbines,
Okay.
where the Danish Environmental Protection Agency, as a result of the infrasound impact on its citizens, was tightening the regulations so that the turbines had to be further away from residences. And the Vestas CEO said to the Deepak minister, turbines send out infrasound. The larger they are, the more they do so. You may be asking yourself why we don't change so that this isn't the case. It is not technically possible to do so. That is the Vestas CEO, and he was talking about turbines which are 3 megawatt turbines. At the time, I believe it was 2011, the letter was written. The largest turbines out there were 3 megawatts. Infrasound, I think we all know, also affects whales. It affects their navigation skills, it affects where they go to feed, it affects their breeding behavior. Because we're finding whales washed up, we lost a spiked number of whales in 2017 without explanation.
I'd vote positive that they do apply under the bylaw.
You
Because
would
through
vote-
views and vistas, I'll go with that.
Then it does apply.
Yes.
Does anyone wish to second his motion?
I'll second.
Any further discussion between the board? All in favor of it applying?
Aye. Aye.
Who's opposed to it applying? I'm going to go with town council's opinion and vote with Christina. The commission just voted that the bylaw does apply.
So I just wanted to give a few more thoughts just on project impacts to summarize things for you. So the jet plow operation that I described earlier, the narrow strip of fluidization of the seafloor sediment, that will affect about a 3.3 foot wide area, so about a meter wide for the direct jet plow impact. Sometimes that piece of equipment has two skids, one on each side, which essentially provides it with some lateral stability on the seabed. Those skids don't penetrate the seabed, they're essentially there to function as slits, just to provide it with stability. So any impact would be temporary and superficial.
Gentlemen, I'm an excavator, so I do a lot of digging. And I know that trenches rarely stay exactly as you'd hope they would be. And so the 3.3 width, when you're going down 5 to 8 feet in sand, it's not going to be a perfect, I know it's fluid, the technique's a little bit different, but the bottom line is it's not going to impact this little area. The silt that's going to plume up out of all this disturbance, and the silt is going to plume when you excavate out the sound waves, and then take them somewhere and dump them from above, and it plumes out with a 4-knot tide. It's just going to blanket the area. So again, it's not this little trench that's described as a minimum impact. It's a huge area with the silt. And that's a huge concern for the benthic layer.
Right, sediment dispersion. We've discussed cable burial being a priority in a number of different contexts. We have included in all of our permitting documents a very conservative contingency for cable protection measures, should it prove that a certain section of cable has not been buried to sufficient depth. That cable protection would be in the form of rock protection or concrete mattresses. It would be limited to 10 feet wide and directly over that area of the cable that may be buried to insufficient depth. So we are avoiding and minimizing cable protection to the absolute maximum extent possible.
I'm going to ask you a couple questions about the dredging and sand waves.
Now or afterwards, it's your preference.
Okay. Well, I think you're not going through these. Some of these sand waves, you're not going to go to the bottom of them to get to this hard surface underneath, but you're going to dredge a portion of them. Okay, so you dredge a portion, you put it in, the material in, and you move it, I think you said 825 feet, either east or westerly, depending on, I guess, current or whatever. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And the easterly route, you've got about 64,000 cubic yards of material. It's in your 4.1. And then I know there's at least one person in this room who can translate that into truck loads, but I'm going to guess it's between 3,000 and 4,000. I just want to give people an idea of how much material is being moved. Not in all I'm saying. So it's somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000, and if I'm wrong, I'll be corrected 1,000 times over. But it's a lot of truckloads of material that's getting moved. Now, also, yeah, but I may have that right. 64,000 cubic yards is what you have in the note. What that translates into in truckloads.
You're equating it to a truckload.
Trying to give people an idea of how much it is, because it's a little hard to conceive of what 64,000 cubic yards are. You're going to move this in here, as I understand it, about 3 weeks prior to actually laying the cable. You're going to make this D, move this material off the top of the wave about 3 weeks prior to actually putting the trench in. I believe I've got that out of here.
It's within 3 weeks
Okay.
of the installation.
So you're hoping that that sand that you just disturbed and moved and picked up and moved 800 feet away isn't going to migrate back into the path of your...
In the short time frame before installation, yes.
In that 3 weeks, you don't think it's going to move? Oh, all right. I just wanted to know. It seems like, what I'm trying to get at, it seems like, A, there's a long period of time of disturbance while this goes in. I understand the actual trench is small, but between the dredging and moving material over, I can see why you want this half-mile wide corridor to work in, because you're going to need to move the sand within that corridor. But we have had testimony last time from fishermen who work in this channel, and the water apparently moves this sand very rapidly. Second fastest moving tidal thing on the East Coast. And I'm surprised. I think you're going to have a lot of clearing, and then coming back and clearing again, then coming back and clearing again. Just common sense. Now, there's a bunch of people in this room who will speak much more knowledge about that than I later. But I'm just bringing that to everybody's attention. There's a long timeline, I think, between the initial dredging and the actual laying of the cable. And so there's a lot of turbidity over a fairly long period of time. Granted, the final installation's in a narrow area, but appears from reading in here that things could get disturbed for a fairly extensive period of time while you're doing this.
Right, but there's no, but just to clarify though, there's nothing that says it has to be 3 weeks ahead of time, right? I mean, that's,
It said it in
I
here.
think it says up, does it say up to, or does it say within 3 weeks?
Just said they were planning, you're moving boulders ahead of time, you're grappling things out of the way ahead of time. So that's even prior to the 3 weeks. Then you come in, figure out where the sand waves are, the ones that are too deep, you just take the tops off of, and I'd like people who know more about how sand moves out there to tell me whether you just take the top off and the sand moves, does a 30-foot deep sand wave or shoal get completely moved down to the bottom in a period of time, and would eventually that cable be exposed? I don't know, because I don't stink at fishing, so don't wait for other people to talk about that.
So
But
it's a little out of my depth in terms of I'm not an engineer.
Right.
But the cables will be installed within the stable seabed below that mobile sand.
But you did say you were going to take a sand wave that was over 15, 16 feet deep and only take the top off of it.
Take
So-
enough of the top of it to ensure burial within the stable seabed.
Right, so the tool itself, so if this, we're not burying the cable in mobile sand, period, full stop.
Well, if the sand wave is 16 to 4 feet deep, and you take the top off, you don't say how deep that is, and then you go down 5 to 8 feet, what if the sand wave's 30 feet deep?
Right, so there's a scenario in which you can use the tool to do, so you don't have to do as much dredging and disturb as much area. You can get the cable into some of the mobile sand, beyond the mobile sand, into the stable seabed using that tool. So it's just to minimize the amount of dredging. We would do a calculation based on how tall is that sand wave, and how much of it would we need to remove to make sure the cable gets into that stable location.
Seems like you would have to go all the way to the bottom.
Yeah.
It might in some cases. It might in some
But it
cases,
could be
for sure.
significant.
Yeah.
Then you're moving a lot of
Enormous
sand.
amount of material.
Right, and we're working to not do that, but we understand that the priority for everybody, including fishing interests, is to make sure this cable is buried 110%. That's the priority, and so that's been.
In the worst case scenario, how long would it take?
For the cable, I mean, this scenario is so, we might get to a level of detail where I want to call the engineer, I want to phone a friend of an engineer, but there's, I think that in all likelihood, the cable vessel will continue moving through the waters, and then we would maybe come back to try to make sure we get that section buried with some additional tools that are described.
You answered a question I didn't ask, and you didn't answer my question.
Okay, let me try again.
Okay. How long?
How long total would it be?
Yeah, on a worst case basis.
For both cables, I'm gonna guess about 6 weeks.
My name's Wes Brighton. I'm a commercial fisherman, and I've spent a good portion of my life offshore and in Nantucket Sound, and the conch fishery is a really valuable fishery to the island, and there's a lot of, actually, I'm from Chilmark, but a lot of the best conch fishermen are here from Edgartown. And first of all, I'd like to show support for, everyone wants to remove themselves from the use of carbon fuel, so I think that's inarguable, and I certainly, as a fisherman, see, the climate effects firsthand on the water and the changing environments that are occurring and shifting. The stocks are relatively strong. They just have shifted drastically to other areas, whether they're coming from the south or going to the north. We in Mitigation Channel are on some of the most unique water on the East Coast. You have the strongest tides that you can find until you get up to the Bay of Fundy, and it's right in our backyard. In this sake, I think it's well known that if you set a trap in the Mitigation Channel and the shoaling effects that occur down there, you can go fish down there and come back 1 week later and you'll run aground on the shoal. And that's how quick it shifts out there. One day, a pile of sand the size of John Keene's pit will move from east to west half a mile. And if you're going to tell me that you're going to lay a cable in that ground, in that substrate, which is primarily soft bottom, and you're going to maintain burial and not have electromagnetic forces, which, by the way, is where all the squid come in, which is where all the strikers come in from the south and of the Atlantic. And I'm telling you that you cannot compare this to Long Island Sound, where you have a cable going from Montauk to Bridgeport, Connecticut, which is basically a tidal pond. It's stagnant. There's no tide there, and it's mud. You can dig, I mean, we all know what it's like to dig in the clay around here, and then you go and stick your foot in the sand on a tide coming in. You're going to sink your foot right in on the beach. And that's the difference between the substrate in which we're dealing with out here. Furthermore, I just have to mention a few other very important dynamics. National Marine Fisheries Service a month and a half ago wrote a letter basically saying that BOEM needs to slow down and take their time, because we're dealing with something that once this bullet leaves the gun, it doesn't come back. And I commend you guys for being so good and giving your presentation so well. However, no one knows what we're getting into, because this is unprecedented. And we have a system, an ecology out here that is tied to our economy, to our tourism, to our livelihoods. And if we want to talk about the right whales, I got in from offshore yesterday. I was 100 miles south in Block Canyon. And the right whales are smack dab in the middle of the lease. And there's an observer plane that goes over the right whales every day, and they post it online on the NOAA website.
So I just wanted to touch on one more thing. We discussed the rare species habitat. So the entire offshore export cable corridor passes through rare species habitat that is mapped for foraging birds, which we briefly discussed before. Vineyard Wind has been in consultations with the Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program really since the start of permitting for this project. The project has completed its review under the Massachusetts Endangered Species Act, and the Natural Heritage Program has submitted a comment letter to this commission on the NOI before you, determining that the project, quote, will not adversely affect the actual resource area habitat of state protected rare wildlife species. So that's answering one of the questions that came up earlier with the discussion with that.
Is that your, yes? Any on the board, anyone have any further questions?
I have one more question. I'm sorry, Christina, if you go ahead.
Since you're talking about rare species or species, this might be an appropriate time to tell us about the right whales and the protections of the right whales. All 405 of them. Is it now 400?
Yeah, so I think well before we even had an offshore wind farm lease area, the right whale and other marine species included, but the right whale in particular has been of significant, in the forefront of everyone's mind with the implementation of these projects. And so to that end, the state of Massachusetts actually initiated studies over this area that have been ongoing now for 7 years to try to understand and make sure that we have as much knowledge as we need to minimize our impacts as much as possible. One of, but not the only, culmination of that data that's been collected is an extensive list of mitigation measures that this project is implementing to, sort of precisely look for and minimize or eliminate impacts to the right whale. So we have about a 10-page agreement that's signed with a couple of environmental organizations, the Conservation Law Foundation, the Natural Resource Defense Council, National Wildlife Federation, that incorporated a lot of scientific input from the New England Aquarium, from the Center for Coastal Studies, from scientists up and down the East Coast that study the right whale, to address things like our vessel speeds, what types of and how many lookouts we'll have when we're operating projects, any of the underwater noise aspects, how to minimize those, and do those activities during a time of year that it will be the least disruptive. So there's a huge commitment on the part of the project to make sure that that's done right.
Just for clarity, is this covering during the construction or for the lifetime of the project?
Both.
Thank you.
And I'm not a right whale expert, but I know they can hear hundreds of miles. So 10,000 feet is less than 2 miles. So basically, if I was a right whale and I was hungry and I knew a food source is where you guys are working, and I heard all the pounding, that'd be the last place I'd go, not within 10,000 feet, but 10 or 100 miles. So then I don't go there, and then I can start getting hungry. I don't want to make some kind of hungry, and then the species starts declining in ways that by the time you realize what's happened, they've already changed their pattern out maybe to a place that nothing's going to happen for them.
So-
I know it's been extensively studied.
Yeah, well, I would like to, and again, this is, since it's outside of jurisdiction, I believe, but it's worth.
But I mean,
worth
it's interesting, they come
yeah.
through the sound, it's, you know, it's. then they might-
Sure, and I don't, but the cable laying, it doesn't involve any percussive action. Just recently, it was in the Cape Cod.
We're talking about the two cables that you're laying for this project. You are you're developing roughly 40% of the lease area that Vineyard Wind holds. The northeastern 40% of the lease area. I'm assuming that you'll want to develop the rest of it at some point. And on top of that, there are lease areas to either side of you. Your project represents maybe 10% of the entire area that's available for wind development. Two-part question. If you develop the other 60% of your lease area, will you be adding additional cables to carry that current?
Well, for sure, yes.
Yeah, I got a couple. About just relating to that particular statement about burying, you do talk in here a lot about natural backfilling. When you talk about making a slurry, getting things all stirred up, make a trench, drop the line in, and you expect a lot of it to just fall back into place. When you do that, how can you be assured it's 5 to 8 feet? And how can you be sure that that sort of slurry, it doesn't work its way back up through that? It doesn't seem like that's a very good way to determine that you're exactly 5 to 8 feet, just hoping everything collapses. I have one more question. The concrete blankets or mattresses that you talked about, and how thick are they? How are they connected together? Go through that again.
Thickness, I have to double check, and we can do that, maybe Muller's comment, but I think it's probably about 1.5 feet thick, I believe, but we should double check it. Plan and something.
Okay, now it's open to the public. Yes.
Well, my name's Clay Barrow, and I've been listening to what they've been saying, and we all know as kids when we dug a trench, and then we ran heavy holes over the middle of it, it didn't erode on either side, it always eroded right where the trench is. Now, I've been fishing out here probably 50 years, and I've watched Skiff's Island grow up out of the ocean 6, 7 feet, 300-400 seals on it. And then I've seen it gone for years. That's probably a movement of 16 feet of sand. 16 feet of sand is way under the amount, as they say, cutting their little channel and doing this and doing that. But we all know that once you disturb the ground, no matter what you do to it, with a 5-knot current running across there constantly, the way the current runs out there, I'm pretty sure it would excavate underneath there and create that cable to come to the top, even underneath the pads. And where the pads weren't applied, how do they know that the sand's not going to move over here? They should add a pad over here. Are they going to install pads later? Is this something they're going to monitor? How are they going to keep that cable under the ground with all that sand movement out there? I mean, they talk about it like it just happens. We all know if you fish there that stuff can happen overnight. I mean, they're giving it days. We're talking about hours here. I've watched that sand move from 2 feet to 6 feet in one day, just going back out there to fish. So, I mean, I don't know, they say the right whales too, just a little bit on that, is all that pounding, they echo sound, everything. That pounding is going to be there and then, and it's going to continue all the way down to wherever they're going. That'll be a constant pounding. They closed the canal the other day to let humpback whales come up through the canal. They go out Buzzards Bay, right through the middle of that whole thing. How are they gonna communicate with all that pounding going on? All the fish, migratory fish that come through the island, stripers, the Atlantic bluefin tuna that go across the back, herring, mackerel, sand eels, right down the list. Every single bit of that comes from out there. So we're gonna destroy a fishing industry that we had for hundreds of years that have supplied countless amounts of money and value to people. And they're gonna do it with something that's only sustainable for 25 years? That just doesn't seem right to me.
Alex Freeman, Edgartown, oyster grower and commercial fisherman. And I want to thank the council for the time and for looking deeply into this issue. I'd like to first state my very public support for alternative energy. And as a fisherman, as a steward of the ocean, we see the effects of climate change radically. We see them much faster than anybody anticipated. I personally very much believe and have worked at the extent of trying to develop and encourage alternative forms of energy. That being said, the ecological impacts of not just the construction of the cable, but the electromagnetic field coming from the cable is massive. And according to the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management's own literature, very poorly understood and needs much more research. By that I mean, there's been extensive work with many different species, loggerhead turtles, humpback whales, hummingbirds. How does a turtle migrate underwater at night with varying atmospheric conditions? All evidence points to electromagnetic sense in many different species being how they orient and migrate. The effects of such a hugely charged cable and the existing cable going from the vineyard to the mainland is not of comparable size. This is a much bigger cable we're talking about. Would, in my opinion, have untold effects upon fish migration, and not just fish, but also marine mammals, elasmobranchs, invertebrates, lobsters, horseshoe crabs, etc. All evidence, this is again from the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management's own literature, has shown that when those cables are electrified, most fish species avoid them radically. That is forage species like Atlantic herring, mackerel, sand eels, also squid, very much, and they also found catches of haddock, cod, and others, flounder as well, decreased by a huge percentage. I wish I had the figure here. Again, it's in the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management's report. And my concern is that having such a charged introduction into the environment. Dr. Greg Skolman was the first one to tell me about this when there was a proposed similar project on Stellwagen Bank. I'm all for alternative energy. I'm all for my children having a future free from the carbon disaster we're in. This is too heavy-handed. There is not adequate science for what the project will mean for the environment. I thank you for your time.
My name is Wesley Brighton. I'm a commercial fisherman. And just for a brief second, would all the fishermen in the room just show their hands really quick? All right, I just want to quickly say that we're here as representatives of the environment that we exist on. And it's very easy to pigeonhole or misrepresent fishermen as greedy people who go out and take advantage of the ocean. And I just want everyone to know that fishermen care and see firsthand at ground zero the impacts of environmental change, climate change. And this is, if we closed our eyes for a second and pictured that this was not in fact a wind farm, but in fact a nuclear power plant or any other type of energy form, the impacts outside of those construction phases would be looked upon drastically differently. But because we are using the alternative energy and there's so much passion behind it, understandably, because we need to do something. But at what cost? What cost to the economy? What cost to our future generations? What cost to feeding this community? And if we don't slow this process down, and I recognize that this is probably a symbolic meeting given the power structures to be, but I can tell you that up and down, this is being rushed. There is a letter from NOAA to the Bureau of Energy Management that disputes a lot of their science. It's a perfect storm politically on the federal and state level. And this is being rushed. It is going to be a problem. And there is so much that it's great to hear everyone say, oh yeah, sure, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Who is going to mandate what the effects of the electromagnetic fields are in 2 years, 3 years? I encourage everybody to take a deep thought about this and not jump into your camps and really think about this prudently, because we don't know what the impacts are, and we're messing with the most pristine waters on the East Coast.
Ron D'Agostino. I'd just like to quote the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management's draft environmental impact statement. You are tasked with looking at the evidence, and I consider this to be evidence. Considering the area affected in relation to the expansive surrounding habitat, impacts would likely be minor. BOEM expects minor impact on water quality during installation and decommissioning. Hard protection might result in minor beneficial impact or negligible impact. Due to the limited time and area involved, BOEM does not expect population level impacts on any given species.
While I know and love all these local fishermen, and I understand their concern, I think it's kind of cool that it comes down to this small group of people in Edgartown who get to, take a look at this final piece of it and say, are we going to save our planet or not?
One of the things that I'm very interested in was the divergence of what was suggested by the BOEM and what you read from their actual letter. And one of the things that we always have to take into account is how we are interpreting the data that we are being fed and who is feeding us that information. So it's significant that our decisions be made upon what is in fact happening and not just what's being necessarily told to us. I would hope that we can have this cable through, and I really would like to look at what those energy effects are. So just keeping it open to think about that.
Yes.
My name is Richard Toole. I've been a resident of the island year round for over 40 years. I'm very familiar with environmental issues out here. I've seen a lot of change. We all seen a lot of change. But I'm chairman of both Buffs Energy Committee. I'm also on the Mountain Commission review. The commission held 2 hearings. I think they did a pretty good job of sorting out the issues. I'm sorry you guys didn't come to those hearings, but most of the testimony is in favor of the cable. 15 people there, 14 voted in favor, 1 abstained. There's 5 conditions in the decision. If you'd like to read the decision, that ask that they take a close look and monitor this thing throughout the process and afterwards to be sure there's no issue. And if there are issues, the responsibility officials are going to want to hear about it. Bring them back to the table.
My name is Norman Willard. I have a house on the island. And we've had that for about 20 years. I'm retired now, but I worked on energy and climate issues at the EPA office in Boston. I was the lead climate advisor for the EPA in New England. I've worked at the local, state, regional, and international levels on climate change and clean energy. Before that, I was with the New York State Environmental Conservation Agency and the State Energy Office. And we've heard a lot today. We've heard the proponents, we've heard some of the opponents of this. I'm now advising the Martha's Vineyard Commission on their task force on climate change. And based on my experience, pretty lengthy and fairly detailed, I want to follow the comments that have just been made. We're facing a climate crisis in this country, and we have to find solutions to that problem. The project that we're discussing here is one of those solutions, and projects like it. We're all going to be suffering, and we are now, from the effects of climate change. And we have to do what we can. We have to do our part. And the piece that Edgartown is looking at here is a piece of a much larger project, and that project is a piece of a much larger policy issue facing this nation and facing the world. So I would implore you to act quickly, to take a vote today, and to get this jurisdictional issue settled, which it sounds like it has been on the town council. Let's take a vote and make this happen. Thank you.
I am a fisherman. I grew up on Chappaquiddick, and I've fished the ocean my whole life, up to the age of 53. And what I can say is, we need to pull a plug on this, people. I'm going to just say point blank, because we're going to decimate our oceans. We're going to lose the livelihood that is basically the beginning of time. We've been fishing, right? I'm on the ocean every day in that area. We sell conch that comes up out of the soil. We see the sand waves and all the changes going on out there. What's going to happen to our fishery, which goes 7 months out of the year, when you're ripping up the ocean floor for this superhighway cable that I know is going to decimate what we do for a living, which is conching. Never mind what it's going to do to the whales, the birds, everything in the ocean. I care about our marine ecosystem. It's why I live here, for the beauty of what we have. You know, it's why people in the world come to Arthur's Vineyard. It's why we have the fishing derby in Edgartown, because we care about our marine life. You know, we should care about that. It's, you know, it's to me, I say we pull the plug. And it stops with the cable. That's where it starts.
My name is John Osmers. I'm an advocate for renewable energy and sustainable fisheries. I just think this whole project is going to have way more impact than they're saying it is. And all this science I don't really believe, because I've seen all the changes firsthand. And from minor things that happen with these fragile ecosystems, and we're messing with this giant area, and you know, who knows what we're going to disturb and what species of marine life we're going to damage with this project. And I would love to see a way for there to be renewable energy. I just don't think this is one of them.
My name is Bridget, and I grew up in Edgartown, and a lot of what I'm hearing today sounds like debates that I heard in college, where both sides are not bringing to the table all the information that they need to. Where's your engineer? You know, that is a person who should be here today to answer these questions. So all I have to say is we cannot vote on this today. We cannot vote on this today. There needs to be more,
Yes, sir.
more discussion.
I'm Bill Lake, live in Aquinnah, on the Aquinnah Energy and Climate Committee, and it seems to be that there's a consensus in the room that climate change threatens devastating consequences to this island, including to its fisheries, and that we have to get off fossil fuels in order to do it. We use renewable fuels. But we hear the view that this wind farm isn't the solution. Wind is the renewable resource that the northeastern coast has. There are other parts of the country that may have geothermal or land-based wind or something else. What we have is a windy coast. It is simply not possible for us to get off fossil fuels in this area without using offshore wind. Offshore wind is our resource, and if we don't use it, the ocean will be devastated by climate change.
Yes.
My name is Preston Butler. I'm a fisherman. Been living on the island for 8 years. I grew up in Marion. I am also 100% in support of renewable energies, but I am 100% opposed to Vineyard Wind's project here. Thank you guys very much for having this meeting today. I've been to at least a half a dozen meetings with Vineyard Wind, and every time we're talking to a wall. They don't listen, they don't care. Somebody's gonna make a lot of money when this happens, and it's not gonna be, it's not gonna be the people who are living here or working out there. In 2017, I had the keys to a lobster boat that was Federal Area 2. Federal Area 2, now with the proposed wind farms, like 70% of it will be under construction in the next 10 years. So, I was about to pull a trigger on a loan and do all this stuff on something that it might be absolutely, have no value after this is all done. The water levels are rising, the glaciers are disappearing, all that, yes. But they're trying to put a power plant in the middle of the ocean. Nothing goes worse together than electricity and salt water. We work on boats, man. Something gets wet once, it's done. We know that. These turbines, and on top of that, they've told us they can only work on them in 5 feet of swell or less. You guys know how often, in the winter when they're trying to do all this work, there's 5 feet of swell or less. We'll go fishing in 10 feet of swell, and we still go months without fishing. So, and on top of that, they keep talking about jobs, but these people don't own boats that put wind farms in the water. These people are hiring foreign companies to come here to blast our waters. The wind turbines are made in Germany. The companies are probably Danish, I believe. I see the guy back there who's the head of it all with his slicked hair. Who are you hiring to install these? I don't. Sorry. Well, whatever. Anyways, there's once this starts, there's not going to be an abort button. It's once this gets underway, it's started, it's begun, and it's the first of many. And I absolutely, we live next to Cape Cod. The very first people, the Vikings, the Basques, whoever, they were coming here for the fishing. Like this is, you're destroying one of the last pristine, like Cox's Ledge, which isn't in their lease, but there's a wind farm lease on top of Cox's Ledge out there. It's a cod breeding ground. Our cod stocks are finally coming back. 50 years ago, we were in a battle with Russian pear trawlers down in this exact area. Boats coming from Russia, factory ships, 2 of them dragging a net 10 miles wide, swallowing up everything south of our waters. We had to fight for that then. And now our stocks are finally starting to come back, and all of a sudden you guys want to sit there in the boat and pile drive the crap out of the ocean floor for who knows how long. And I don't think any of your guesses as to how difficult it's going to be are even close to accurate. I think they're going to require way more maintenance. I don't think your blasting is going to go as easy as you think. Like, you have no idea how quick that sand moves out there. Like Seal Island, like he was just talking about, it was not there last September. Now it's probably 8-10 feet above waterline, and I bet you this winter it'll be gone again. And that might not be 5-8 feet. That could be 20 feet of sand moving in 12 months. And you guys, I totally am all for renewable energy. Take all these wind turbines, put one every mile of every highway that's within a couple miles of the coast. These things can't run past 25 knots anyways. They turn off when the wind hits 25 knots. They're going to be shutting down all the time, which also means they have to be hooked up to a backup generator. And these backup generators, some studies have shown they're more efficient running 365 days a year than like every time the wind farm shuts off. The amount of power it takes for these huge generators to get up to full capacity is incredibly inefficient. There are a lot, these guys literally, we've been talking to a wall. I've been to 5-6 meetings. They don't care what we say. And, it's really, they're in it for their bottom line. I do not think this is good for the environment at all.
So I just want to acknowledge that this is a pretty emotional issue, right, for all of us. I think most of us here, this is an emotional issue. Our future is at stake. I will say, just from the beginning, I'm in support of this project being built. I am a professional who work on climate energy policy. I have been on the front lines of that work in Washington, D.C. for the last 3 or so years. I also am a Vineyard Vision Fellow, and part of my work in that fellowship was working on the island to figure out what this community can do to contribute to climate change. There are many of us here who have spoken to the fact that climate is happening, so I'm not going to go into that in detail, but I want to say that We talk a lot on this island, in this community, about what we can do about climate change. We say we care. Honestly, after having looked at it closely, there's not a lot that we can do here to have a huge impact on climate change. This project is an exception. This is a huge impact this community will have. Please don't interrupt me. Either way, we will have an impact, whether we say no, whether we say yes. This will be the
Hi there, my name is Jenny Worthington, and I'm not a specialist in anything except for Life 101. I feel like I'm very connected to the earth, and I see no real good coming from this. I think every time we've tried to mess with Mother Nature, everything has come to bite us in the butt. DDT, let's go ahead. Things just don't make any sense. Why we don't take all this money and put it into solar? I have solar panels, they work. Why isn't that even being considered instead of taking up a whole new thing that has so many moving parts that we then have to fix? Solar panels would be so easy. I realize we've got them at the dumps, they're in other places, but we could make the prices come down and it would be less moving parts. So, KISS, keep it simple, stupid. You know, why can't you just do that? You know, and the fishermen are going to be impacted. There's going to be the birds. I heard the Audubon Society was paid like $6 million to monitor the dead birds. The birds that come in and eat all the bugs, the bats, all the natural things that are going to be hurt because of this, when we can do something much simpler. And it would be just as effective. Come on, let's get those solar panels going, get the prices down, make them affordable. I'm sorry, but it's from my heart, and it's how I feel about the land, and I love this island. I don't want anything happening to it either. So that's my 2 cents.
Yes, sir. We'll let this woman speak first and then.
Me?
You.
You go. My name is Kate Warner, and I have been involved in the energy world on the vineyard starting in 1998 when I put in the first solar array, grid-tied solar electric array on Martha's Vineyard. And we now have 14.2 megawatts of solar on the vineyard, but that's really just a small percentage of our power. I have to say that I appreciate all the thoughtful comments that have been made about climate change, about EMFs, by the fishermen of this island, but what really has happened is we are in such a scary place about life on Earth. In the meantime, we all benefit from the cables that bring electricity to Martha's Vineyard, and we all accept how the power is made off island, even though the Canal Sandwich plant has the greatest breast cancer rate of anywhere in the state. So we allow for electrical generation to go on in other parts of the state that we use, and we don't have any power generation on the vineyard other than the solar. So I think unless we're all willing to quit using electricity in a world where we're actually all using more electricity, then we have to take responsibility for how that electricity is made. In addition, I went over the last day, I went to Nantucket's climate conference. This is a conference that occurs on Nantucket one year and on the vineyard the next. They're very concerned about the fishing and shellfishing industry of Nantucket. And I learned 2 things that were particularly alarming to me in terms of the short term of the fishing industry. One is that the acidification of the ocean is ruining marine life, any marine life that grows a shell, because the calcium carbonate eats away at the ability to grow that shell. Nantucket has experienced a severe drop in how much scallops they can harvest. I mean, just phenomenal, from 120,000 bushels in 1980 to less than 50,000 or no, 5,000 bushels in 2018. The warming of the ocean is also decreasing the oxygen for marine life, which is an issue for fish. So basically, what it comes down to for me is that our world is changing, and it's really scary. We have a really short amount of time in which to try and turn this around. All of us who have children or grandchildren should be thinking about our responsibility today. I have no children, and I'm still really worried about what the world is going to be like. We have to adapt to a changing world, and that means changing things that we don't want to change and that we don't want to think about. How are we going to do that? The choices are we either now change what we do, or we accept the choice that we did not change what we were going to do, and we accept the world that comes from that lack of decision. If there are ways to mitigate the impact of the installation of the cables, I think we should do that. But we have to keep our eyes on the larger issue, keep it in the forefront of our minds that we're talking about the end of human life on this earth.
I care deeply about our fishermen, our fishing community and heritage, and our farmers, and our farming community and heritage. And I know that any big new development is scary and it comes with risks. And I wish we had time as a community to say more years of study and more alternatives and other things. But the climate science is completely clear. We are out of time. We have no more time. That's all.
This project is certainly one about climate change, about mitigating, about finding alternative energy, but it's also an opportunity for community development. And through the partnership with Vineyard Wind and ASMB, alongside Mass Maritime and Bristol Community College, this project also provides a commitment to workforce development that has a huge impact on the students of the school.
Does the high school have any written commitment from wind farm to employ?
My name is Richard Andre, so back here.
Right, Vineyard Wind.
There's going to be an operations maintenance facility that's going to be located at the property in New Haven. It's going to employ up to 50 employees. Vineyard Wind made a commitment to have 100% of those employees as island employees, so we're starting that process now. We're not doing the 6 o'clock ferry over in the morning from Falmouth and the 3:45 back. It's going to be island residents.
My name's Arno Ewing, and I'm a supporter of renewable energy and sustainable fishing. And I'm a commercial fisherman, and I fish in these locations where the cable is going to be, or might be laid, and my spots will certainly be affected by it, but it's not really my job that I'm most concerned about being affected. It's more just the fish and the ecosystem, the animals that live there. And it's one of the last wild places on the planet. We've already populated the earth with homes and roads and all of that, and we keep displacing animals on the earth. And now we're moving out to the ocean to start doing a similar thing. And in my opinion, this isn't going to have enough of a positive effect. It's not going to help enough to warrant such industrial development in a pristine wild area.
We have a crisis and we have to act. And I think that Edgartown has to do this because not only is it going to have minimal impact, but it is also going to help us relieve some of the coming impact. We're bending the curve of the impact back down to the extent that we can is important. It's important for everyone. Thank you.
This is a key starting project. So the decisions you make, whether it's yes, go forward, or no, we're going to delay this, the decisions you make as a conservation commission, by the way, conserving the island means stopping climate change. The decisions you make are going to impact nationally and globally. This is not something, not since Ted Kennedy missed the bridge was there such a national impact that can come out of your decision.
I would like to make a motion to reconsider our understanding of and our vote on whether the bylaw, the Edgartown wetlands bylaw, applies to this instance or not.
Any discussion on that motion? Yeah, everybody in favor of that? Anyone opposed? Unanimous. All in favor of that motion that the Edgartown Wetland Protection Act does not apply to this application?
Aye.
Anyone abstaining or voting the other way? Unanimous.
If this board votes no, it will be momentous. It will be historic. Martha's Vineyard will come on the map as the one in 40 years, the board who sat and understood why wind is not the way to go. Governor Baker, since I last talked to you, announced a contest next year for the rights to build one power line out to the offshore lease areas. A line that could be shared by all the developers. The governmental agencies see that as less environmentally damaging. Baker also wants to welcome other clean energy sources such as Canadian hydropower or solar to enter the competition for renewables. So if we hold off a little bit, we may be looking at a much different picture. I mean, I'm not going to be saying at any time, it's not about NIMBY, it's nowhere for these wind turbines. But in a year, it's going to look a little different. You all could put off your decision. You could ask them to come back once you see that the Block Island cable has gotten buried. We don't know that, to say it is of highest priority and we will guarantee and you can condition, doesn't mean anything. When those turbines are out there and something is not the way they said it was, and again, if you look at the BOEM visual simulation, there are all kinds of things here that are not the way, that are definitely not going to be the way the presenter said. So, however you bury the cable, you have EMF around that cable. And Holly said not to worry. We have BOEM assurances that it will be of minor impact. If you look at submission 17 on an interactive spreadsheet I gave you, you will see a 95-page research report on EMF in the Dutch North Sea. These are independent scientists. They're not an entrepreneur who's going to get $2 billion from our money from the State House to put these things in the water. They're not even paying to put them in the water. We are going to pay to put them in the water. But so here's a 95-page research report which echoes what everyone says. Everyone knows EMF is emitted by these offshore wind cables. Their quantitative impact on the marine ecosystem is largely unknown, but identified impacts on marine species include disturbance of attraction and avoidance behaviors, navigation and migration, predator-prey interactions, and even embryonic and cellular development.
Is everyone aware of what EMF is? Electromagnetic force.
If you look at the data responsibly, wind is only making things worse, and we need to stop pouring money into wind and put it into R&D and get something that's going to work.
Anyone else like to say anything?
My name is Zoe Turcott, and this is my husband, Timothy Penico. We are Advent school teachers, but we're here today as concerned citizens and landowners. We own a home on Chappaquiddick, abutting Waste Reservation, and we look out over Nantucket Sound, so we'll be right where the cables will be installed. And we are just super excited to really hope that this project goes through. We are very much in support of it for the future. Someone suggested we might see a boat out there installing the cables, but to me that would mean progress.
Also live on Chappie, 37 years commercial fishing. I was on a board with the other wind company and had to sign off on stuff that I saw from them. And it is scary. I'm shaking. I would love to see the board put this on hold or downscale this whole project. There is not enough money. The science is usually paid for by the company and is not independent. I heard nothing about flume tank testing. We find out what's going to happen with, they call them sand whatever. They're sand ridges, they're as big as a peak. and they're just gonna mow them down. That's strip mining, in my mind. I see nothing good of this. I know it's coming, I know it's needing, it's overkill, and we're being strong-armed by money. This project should be scaled down with more science done so we can have a better understanding of what is gonna happen, instead of throwing all our eggs in one basket and saying, oh my God, what just happened? Thank you.
Anyone else?
I guess I kind of just have a question. I know that, renewable energies and different sources of them have been, big topic in the news for a long time now. And I would like a best case and worst case scenario about the carbon footprint of the whole installation, how much fuel they're planning on burning, how many days a year they're planning on being able to work. A big boat is incredibly inefficient. I bet the boat that installs these things burns a few hundred gallons an hour. And that might just be the mains, never mind the generators and all the stuff powering our hydraulic pumps and this and that. And supposedly they had given, I was just talking to John about this on a little break, and supposedly they said it's a couple years that these things pay themselves off. But I would really like, I totally agree with Todd. I think it's in the best interest of everybody on this island and maybe everybody in the whole world to wait a little bit and get some more solid research. These guys have been strong-arming their way through absolutely everything. I wasn't joking about talking to a wall. We've been in meetings with these guys where they listen to us and then they just point at something up on the screen that says negligible. They're like, no, the EMF, no, it's right up here. It's in the negligible category. There's negligible, moderate, severe. No, don't worry, it's negligible. Oh, it's minor. They're using very broad adjectives to describe really important things. All these migrations, everything. Martha's Vineyard was built by fishermen and farmers, and this one's coming north. But then the next one is proposed to go west. And so we literally might be totally cutting our whole island off with this electromagnetic field that nothing in the ocean wants to swim by. And whales, how far approximately can whales communicate? 1,500 miles? And I don't know, maybe that's a push, we'll call it 750. Still, it's crazy how these animals communicate underwater. And noise is vibration. There's no way around that. So these things are going to be making these noises, and you're not going to be able to stop the vibration from going into the ocean. And, he's saying, I would be surprised if, best case scenario, these things are 25 years. They just said 30 today. The last meeting, it was 25. So you can, they want to make it sound nice. But if these things last 20 years, and the construction process takes twice as long as expected, it might take 15 years for them, for the carbon impact of the thing to be neutral. Those are the numbers I want to hear. How long is it going to take them, best case and worst case scenario, for this whole project to be, carbon neutral, for it to save the amount of fossil fuels that got burned during the production of the whole thing? They have never mind, I wonder how many gallons of fuel they just burned surveying this whole area. I've been down there fishing. There's been a huge boat driving non-stop for the past couple of years. Again, a boat that's burning over 100 gallons an hour, dragging stuff around, just non-stop, just so they can put these, make a map that says there are boulders here and sand there. But don't worry, we're just going through all of it. I really plead you guys to, at least push off your decision for a little bit and wait for some more real facts to come in. Because, for this guy to say that that's not science, there are people in this room who are not here to listen. A lot of them. So, you guys, it's so true. You guys are in an incredible predicament right now. Because no matter what, there's somebody who's going to be upset off the get-go. But I think there are much better alternatives than an offshore wind farm. I really do.
I urge you guys, Finn Robinson. I really urge you guys to just look at the facts and not be emotional about it, and with a clear head, try to make a decision that makes sense. We're really running out of time with the climate crisis. We have to do something now. And it may affect the fishing industry, it may change the island a little bit, but we have to do this, and we're not going to keep the fishing industry the way it was, like the woman here said before, in 1950 forever. We have to adapt and we have to change. I think we really have to do this, because we are running out of time, and we need to make solutions now.
As to the EMFs, as to saying there's no science behind it, I'm a recovering lawyer, as you know, and one of the things I did that I can't really talk about was confidentiality things did involve EMFs. I was on the side of people who were complaining, and I wish there had been science that really tells you what EMFs do and don't do to people, and the range of them. The science simply does not exist to make that kind of a statement with anything other than just it's possible.
How you doing? I'm Toby Maderas. I've been taking all this in, you know, I'm 7th generation on this island. I look at that map, and honestly, I'm out there 9 months out of the year. And a lot of people know me. I make a living on those waves, sand waves that you guys keep talking about, okay? These shoals. Yeah, things move, things get created, but I'm looking at that, and in all honesty, I'm thinking of my twins in college. How am I going to pay for it? They're going to shut me down for a while. No matter what happens in this meeting, in all honesty, it doesn't matter. It's going to come. It's going to happen. We're playing against big money. It ain't going to change. I grew up in a political family. I know how to ride the wave. It's going to happen. Can we delay it? Yeah, till other things come in. But I want you to remember this meeting. I'm standing up here right now telling you, and put it in the back of your head. It's common sense, people, that everybody here likes simple thing like base golfs, okay? You're gonna turn around, that's a mile off of Oz's. It's right off of Cape Pope, okay? I'm there every freaking day. You're gonna turn around and take 64,000 cubic feet of sand waves out of there. Take it, put it on the barge, and dump it, okay? Not counting what they're gonna do with the dredge that's gonna put this cable in, okay? Out of that, what comes out of that? Silt, okay? Remember this, when you have 6 knot tides, a southeast flow or a northeast flow, where's that silt gonna go? Just think about it for a second. This is only a little stretch, okay? It's gonna come around Hawes, come around Cape Pope Flat, and right into Edgartown. So remember this meeting. In 5 or 6 years, when you people all of a sudden go down the market and say, hey, there's no base golf center. Why? You think I'm joking. You think I'm joking. Prime example, right now, go over the bridge in Vineyard Haven, okay? What is in there? A dead zone. Lagoon is dead. Only reason why? Silt from a small $30 million project to put in pilings. They killed the pond, okay? This is not scuttlebutt. This is fact. You go over the pond you go over the bridge from the hospital, go over it, you look on your right. Remember that used to be all pristine green with eel grass and everything? Done, toast. No scallops, no eel grass, nothing. All the way in the pond. They created their own channel with the silt. It's dead, it's over. O+ will never have scallops in there again, and you have never have scallops. Think about that. Just think about the trickle down effect of that. That's fine, it's gonna happen. I'm all into all that. I got kids. Absolutely, we need it. We're not going to save the planet. We're not going to save the world. But, yeah, we can do something. You know what I mean? It doesn't belong here. These are pristine waters. These are our waters, man. You know what I mean? My grandfather's grandfather made a living here. It's our water. Yeah, it's going to happen. It's fine. But it's too big for a project. Too much going on. You talk to the EMFs? I'm sorry, Cap. I hate to disagree. When you look on the NOAA site, it's a fact. Everybody sits there and says, oh, EMF, okay? It's not official. Look on the NOAA site, that's all I'm asking, okay? Simple gesture, okay? You got 800 kilowatt cables coming in. Everybody's talking about, oh, geez, these people throw at you. Look at the one coming over from the cable. How big is it? How big? How many kilowatt is that? Be honest. Tell us, come on. Here's the information, where's your engineer? How big is it, young lady? How many kilowatt coming over from Falmouth? How big is that cable? I'll tell you right now, 19 kilowatt, okay? Compared to what? 400 kilowatt cables that you people want to put, oh, excuse me, what, 800?
220 kilovolt cables.
Each one?
Each cable.
Okay, so
is
440.
220.
My bad. Okay, 440.
Each cable is 220 kilovolts.
Okay, so you want to put two, right?
Right.
Okay, 440. Now think about this a second. Where did my map go? You don't like me go home? Okay, anyway, you put the thing, put it up there, you get a fence. You put a fence up. Don't get me wrong, but remember this meeting, people. Remember this. When you turn around and the squid don't show up, the squid fishery, multi-million-dollar squid fishery, where we want to put all this stuff. Okay? Multi-million-dollar clamming industry. All the stuff that goes on down there. When all these other things get shut off from coming in here, and all of a sudden, guess what? We don't have no bass derby. You got no people coming down here for a month because there's no goddamn fish around. Excuse my language, no fish around. I'm just saying, I'd like to, it's just, think about it. Just think about it, take in what's gonna happen. That's all. Okay, but it's just common sense. You guys got a lot on your shoulders, you do what you can do, but I'm just saying, just take it all in. But remember this meeting and say, when Tubby stood up and said that, holy crap, you know what I'm saying? He was right. That's it, all right?
Anyone else? Yes.
I'm Odin, I'm from the vineyard, I've lived here for my entire life. I say I care about fishermen a lot, and yes, I do think this is probably going to slightly affect them, but I also think if we don't stop acidifying the oceans, that will make the oceans uninhabitable, and that's going to affect them a lot more. So I urge you to vote yes on this project.
Ben Robinson, I'm his father, Tisbury resident, sit on the Tisbury Planning Board and the Martin Singer Commission, and we had our chance at this a few months ago. What gives me hope is that on Thursday in Edgartown at 10 a.m., we're getting this kind of crowd about this topic. This is probably the most important topic of our day, the decades to come, potentially the centuries to come. The world is embarking on a process to try to survive. Humanity is trying to survive. This board here is probably, this might be the most important decision you guys have made in years. I've sat in rooms, empty rooms, making decisions that are important to the vineyard. But the fact that the public is out talking about this issue, discussing these issues, is the first, the most critical step we can take. We need to change the way we're doing business. Full stop, period. The fishermen, there are canaries in the coal mine for the vineyard. It's time to act. And I have immense empathy for our fishermen and our farmers. And they're the canaries in the coal mine for this, but it's going to be us. All of us are going to be tasked with some level of sacrifice to pull us out of this mess. So get ready. It's the fishermen today. It's going to be the rest of us tomorrow.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I also have a lot of empathy. I've been practicing medicine for 30 years. I'm a nurse practitioner. I do know research is an art and a science. And I do know that the infrasound and the electromagnetic, all of that is very important to preserving our ocean. And you know, I care about everything from crawling in the ocean floor to flying above it. And I know that putting in these wind farms and what that cable is going to do to the ground, my own brother, I'm laying cable right now on Chappaquiddick, putting power to a house. What that's done to just get power to a house is huge. My own brother said, hey, you want to go fishing, you want to get worms, all you got to do is take an electrode, put it in the ground, they come up out of the ground. Fishing might be good for a year because it will look good because everything's going to come up out of the ground because of the electricity with this cable in the ground, and then it's going to decimate the fisheries and the area. And, you know, bird migration, we can just keep going out. We can just keep going on this and throw our research and talk science if that's how you want to do it, or just plain old common sense. Not a good idea. It's going to decimate the area. That's all I have to say.
Yes?
Hi, I'm Shelley Edmondson. I'm the Executive Director of the Martha's Vineyard Fishermen's Preservation Trust. I also have my doctorate in zoology, focusing on marine biology of channeled whelk, or conch. So I know a lot about snails, but I am very passionate about our marine ecosystems here, and I'm very concerned about climate change and ocean acidification. And I feel like there's so many unknowns to this project. I think the impacts, there are a lot of unknowns. I've talked to many scientists on all sides, and it's overwhelming, the scale from here all the way down the coast. And I think we have to act with caution, and I think we need to make the right choices, but we have to have the data to back those decisions. And I don't feel like there's enough baseline data to make these choices. We don't know if we put this cable in, what was there and what will change. And that is key to understanding how to operate in the future. If this project goes ahead, how do we know that the projects to follow are doing the right thing unless we know what the impacts are from this? So I am very concerned with ocean acidification, but I don't want this to add to that, to be another thing that's putting pressure on our marine ecosystem, on everything. So I understand my friends for this project, and I understand my friends against, but I stand in the middle saying I'm concerned and afraid. Thank you.
Anyone else?
One small comment too is yes, energy is a big problem right now in this world, but also not to forget starvation is a huge problem worldwide. And so by taking away a fishery, a valuable food producing environment, and putting a power plant, you may be creating a bigger problem down the road also. Like there is a lot of food, a lot of protein that's supplied to the United States of America from these waters. And I think that also has to be taken into consideration. You know, starvation worldwide is a huge issue. It's not just electricity and it's not just carbon. There are a lot of variables at play here, but this is a historically incredibly productive, fishery, and fishing has fed this country for a long time. And so, sorry, I just wanted to bring that up too, and, it hasn't been said yet, but, you do have to worry about starvation down the road. Like, food is gonna be a problem as well.
Thank you.
I just want to say that while others were talking, I did pass around a couple of visuals that I had not gotten to you before. One is the sediment plumes from the Thanet Array going back and forth continuously with the tides, 100 to 500 feet wide. And I'd also like to
we would all have to admit that the issues that have been raised here beautifully by everybody are really big issues. And on the fossil fuel industry side, on the wind side, all these things, big money is being spent on these issues. And I think it was fair, and the question has been answered, I think it's fair to ask where people are coming from when they make very professional presentations.
Anyone else? Yeah, one more time.
I do have to say, I really think that sediment is going to come into Edgartown waters and is going to make an impact on the wetlands in Edgartown in some way. Whether they're saltwater marshes or whether they're, whatever. I can't imagine that stretch being worked on without an incredible amount of sediment coming right into the harbor, especially with Norton Cut open, or actually no, it's closed now. But when Norton Cut is open, there's a huge amount of flow that goes through Edgartown. And in an incoming tide, I think it's incoming, the tide wraps right around Cape Pogue and goes into Edgartown Harbor, into Cape Pogue Bay, and then out the, across Yale Pond and across State Beach. Well, when that cut's open, a lot of water gets sucked into Edgartown Harbor.
Anything else, anybody?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Bridget, and I just want to say that I've been extremely moved by people from both sides today, and I have to say that I stand very much in the middle. When it comes to the cable, I just beg of you all to be sure about your decision. I don't know, I mean, I haven't read all the papers that you have on this project, but I ask you to please know exactly what you're voting yes or no for and the consequences of that, because to me, it seems like a really huge deal. And moving all of that sand, the silt, it's a lot, right? It's something, it's huge. So I'm really interested in learning more about it. I'd like to talk to you after the meeting, and yeah, if you're making a decision today, I hope you really know what you're doing.
So do I.
We appreciate all of the comments that we heard and people taking the time to attend today. One item I did want to circle back on were the concrete mattresses. So there were some questions about whether these features would move. These are specifically designed so they won't. The lifespan of those concrete mattresses are actually designed to last the lifespan of the project.
Did you have a set amount for the cable?
The decommissioning?
For the cable, yeah.
We don't have that. I don't have that number yet.
Okay,
Boehm is getting that number.
give us an estimate on that too, please?
We will, yes.
I think his point was if you, today's dollars set aside the amount of decommissioning and you say the project has 30-year life.
Yep.
That number's going to be a lot higher in 30 years, probably more
I see
than
your
double.
point. Yes.
Who
Yes.
covers the shortfall?
Yes, no, yes, yes, they would take that into account, that you would have the money to take it down at the end of its useful life. Yes, I do believe they take that into account at the end of its useful life.
Was that furnished to the Martha's Vineyard Commission?
The decommissioning?
Yeah, the cost and stuff.
I think we discussed it, and there was a condition associated with bringing any, I believe it's something about bringing any further information to the commission.
Thank you. 5 hours. It's an extraordinary hearing, and we appreciate all the comments that everybody made for or against the project, and thank you for the time. We are asking for your vote in favor of an order of conditions under the Wetland Protection Act for this project, for the cables. We respectfully would like to have it today. We would like to have it as soon as we can. We'd like you to join the Energy Facility Siting Board, MEPA, the Martha's Vineyard Commission, the Cape Cod Commission, the Nantucket Conservation Commission, the Barnstable Conservation Commission, the Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program, who've all approved this project, looked at these same issues. We're paid, sure, we heard a lot about us doing this, we're paid, but those are not paid by us. They are scientists, they are regulators, or they're volunteer boards, don't have an axe to grind in this, and they found for the project, and we hope that you'll find for the project. Respectfully, we think that the science doesn't require the stark choice between making strides toward being carbon neutral and the fishing and environmental interests that some of the people who are opposed to this project mentioned. We don't think the science bears out that choice. We also think that this project is something that it's an order of conditions. We do expect that there will be conditions. We have a lot of conditions. Every agency we've talked about have put their conditions on. We take conditions very seriously. We will comply with them. We'd like to work with you on those conditions. So by approving the project, the commission is obviously not just saying go ahead and have fun and let us know how it turns out. You have an opportunity to control that, and we're ready to work with you on that. So we hope that you'll vote yes, give us an order of conditions, and we thank you very, very much for your time and attention in a very long process.
And I think that's it. Everybody here spoke one way or another on the environmental impacts, whether that's local or global. I would like to think that these two choices are not mutually exclusive. And if we're going to go ahead with this, I think we need to bear in mind that there will be other projects following this one. This is not an isolated instance. This is a test case for everything that goes from here forward. And as such, we need to do everything in our power to make sure that if we go ahead with this, that it will be done in a way that allows the local ecology to flourish alongside with energy. I don't know yet whether that can actually happen or not. We know that there's going to be a huge impact to the local environment, especially looking ahead to more development offshore. Maybe it's worth it. We've brought ourselves to this point, and now we have to make these decisions. And it's not an easy decision to make. I think I'll just stop there. I'm not going to bring it to a conclusion. I just want to be that open-ended. This is a tough one. And this is not the first time. And this is not the last time. This is the first time. It's not the last time that we're going to make these decisions.
Anyone else on the commission wish to make a statement?
I really think there's a great possibility that cable is going to get exposed in one of those sandways, and it's going to be in the Muskegon channel, and it's going to start flopping around or something. You're going to go back there just like they're doing at Bluff Island, try to fix it, more turbidity, more working on it. You've got potential only completed a little less than half of your area that you can lease, so you want to go back and expand on that. And you want to bring more power through, maybe more cables. I see more activity. You've been honest, and thank you for that, that it could cable more cables to the Muskegon Channel. And I'm beginning to see that the Muskegon Channel is going to become a cable highway, not much of anything else. So I'm going to focus on the cables in the Muskegon Channel, because that's what I'm working. And specifically starting with the construction timeline. Now, you've detailed in great detail the construction timeline. And so I'm going to kind of summarize it a little bit in my head here a little bit. It takes 1 week to put down the cable, but on further questions to you guys, it's probably with weather, with delays, with different kinds of things that will come. You had mentioned at one point it might be more like 6 weeks. So going through the document carefully, you go through a process of moving boulders, and on page A18, you then say that's about 2 months prior to the installation of the cable. So moving boulders and then grappling and clearing out stuff in shapes, whatever there is, once you determine where the line is, are all things that you do 2 months ahead of time. And those are all things that will create, I'm kind of focusing on turbidity here. In other words, what's the construction timeline really going to be, and how disruptive is it really to the fisheries that thrive in this area. So you've got a couple of months ahead of time, you move boulders, you grapple a couple of months ahead of time, then you come in, you determine where it is, and you dredge. You've estimated that on the eastern route, that we'd be moving somewhere in the neighborhood of, I call it, for the sake of people understanding it, 4,000 truckloads of material. And you're dredging it, moving at 820 to a month later to come back and trench. So now we're talking about 3 months. Then your trenching is somewhere between 1 week and 6 weeks, so we'll say another month. So essentially, we're looking at some degree of disturbance to the Muskegon Channel over a 4-month period of time, and an additional 2 months to put in the other cable. So essentially about 6 months of time to disturb the channel to varying degrees. And I know that, the turbidity, you mentioned how it recovers itself sometimes in a matter of hours or days. I listen to fishermen that say, maybe not so. And not only that, there's still that may move well beyond the 2,600 feet that you have as a channel to work in. So I think that I have some real concerns with soap deposits that go way beyond where this Muskegon Channel is. And a lot of those are basically because this is a 5-knot, I think they said it was a 5-knot water moves here very rapidly through this. I mean, somebody mentioned